How's it going? I'm Jeremy with MS Videos. This is a mil-spec AR-15 trigger install. I've seen a lot of these on the internet and I just kind of wanted to do my own. First off, tools you need a punch, plastic tip or nylon tipped hammer. To make your life easier, a slave pin just to install the disconnector. But it's not needed, you can get by without it if you just use a punch. Yeah, 2.55 ounces or 72 grams.
Got it.
Parts that we're going to be using. This is your mil-spec trigger setup. You've got your mil-spec trigger, mil-spec hammer, hammer spring, trigger spring, disconnector, disconnector spring, and a pair of hammer and trigger pins. If you're watching this video, you are trying to figure out how to put a mil-spec trigger into an AR-15. So, with everything we just showed you, you should know what tools you need and what parts you need, and you should have it laid out in front of you. To make your life easier, have already prepped your lower receiver and have it on a bench block just to make your life easier so it's not moving around. You can do it without it, but you do take a chance of scratching things. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe if you find value in this video. And we did just open up our memberships. So if you, I think it's $4 a month, $4.99 a month, you can get all the behind the scenes footage that we throw up, and it's exclusively just for members. And we also have some deals on merch when we get that set up. So yeah, be a member. We love you. This is your trigger, and this is your trigger spring, and you want to put these together. So I'm just going to bring it close to me because it makes it a little easier. You want to install your spring onto your trigger by hooking the front part under this nose cone, coming over here, and it just fell into place for me. So you should end up like that. So there's your trigger with your trigger spring. This is hooked around the front. These come down, so when you insert them into there, these push down flat against the bottom of the receiver. So next thing you need to insert is your disconnector spring, and there is two sides. If you notice here, there's a fat side and a skinny side. They are different diameters. Hopefully you can see that there. Skinny, fat. Take the fat side and put it into the machined hole that's machined into the trigger itself, and you just simply push it down in there. Nice sound effects. And then it sits like that. Your disconnector comes in. Make sure the hook is facing forward. Line up your pin holes, and then that should sit in there just like that. Hopefully you can see that clearly. Make your life a little easier if you have one. Just insert your slave pin in here, line it up like so, and that just holds it in place while you put it into the firearm. So now that this is assembled, we just drop it right down into the lower receiver. There's a machined opening, and it's just going to rest in there like that, and those springs are going to be holding the front of the trigger off the deck. At this point, you take your trigger pin, and you go, there's two machined grooves into it. Those go in last. Now you can insert the smooth side of the trigger pin first, and you're just going to drive out that slave pin. This is where the hammer comes in. Just use a nylon tip just to protect your lower. Tap it like that. Slave pin will pop out the other side. And then I like to use a punch and just hold it against the pin, just so that you're not directly hitting the metal with the hammer. Even though it's nylon, just makes it so you protect the finish. So you should be finished with this being flush on this side and this being flush on this side. Now we're going to do the hammer. So take your hammer. This part of the hammer is the part that makes contact with the firing pin. So this is the back side and this is the front side. This spring is going to sit on there like that, and it's going to be trapped. So the way I do it is I just put it vertical like this, get one side over like that, and then the other side over like that. And then when this rotates in, this spring is going to be trapped against the back side of the trigger. I'm sorry, the hammer. And these two springs are going to be on the bottom side. So when it gets inserted, they go like that. And that is how it keeps the tension on. Put these two in on the back side of here. Slide them into place. And now you're just going to push the the hammer forward and keep that lined up until your pin becomes accessible, and we are straight smooth side in first. So right here, hopefully you can see that in there. I'm just going to reverse this just a tiny bit. I'm going to put the punch in just to hold it in place. Then I'm just going to use the nylon side, and the punch is now holding those holes, lining them up so that the pin will slip through. And now I'm just going to tap this in like so. Just a little love tap, protect my OD green finish. There we go. That is a full install of a mil-spec trigger. Now we're just going to test it. I don't have the safety in yet, so I'm just going to put my finger here to protect it from slamming into the lower receiver. So if I pull the trigger, it breaks. Locks open, breaks. Once I get the rest of the lower put together so that this is protected, I will put a pull weight gauge on there and find out what the actual pull weight is, but it's probably somewhere around 7 to 8 pounds on the mil-spec springs. We're going to show the install of a radian safety. It's an ambidextrous safety. You can switch it between 45 degrees and 90-degree throw. I already kind of checked it out when I had it open. It's kind of a neat design. What they did is they put a spring in the center and then 2 detents. So you slide your pieces on and it just clips in place. You do have to put it together in stages because you have to put it into the gun. I'm choosing to use the 45-degree side, and now I'm going to show you how to put it in. So I like to start with the right side of the firearm being the one I already have pre-installed. So I insert the safety from the right side just because I like to know what size throw I'm choosing. So I put it in like this with the 45-degree side down towards where the detent is going to come through. So what I did is I used the leverage of the safety to push the back of the trigger down to get it through. Just kind of cheated it a little bit. So now before we push this all the way in, look right here, you can see that I'm on the 45-degree side, the short side, not the 90-degree side, which is the long side. So now I'm just going to push that all the way through, and that's in place. Now coming from the opposite side, we need to put our spring and detent. Take your small spring and insert it into the center of the safety bar. So you take the tiny little detent here. I like to put the longer side, because it looks like there's slightly longer side and a shorter side, into the spring so that the detent side is shorter, making it easier to take out later. So you insert into the center of the cylinder the spring and the detent. And then you're going to slide this machined groove onto the channel, push in on the detent, and then once it goes forward a little bit, it'll lock it in place so that you can get a better grip on the top of it. Push it in, and it slips forward. And then once it goes all the way, it will lock. And now it's locked into place, so it is installed. So that is the install of the safety itself. Now what we're going to do is we're going to have to put our detent and spring, which it comes with it in the kit. And I'm assuming they've picked some spring weight that's nice. So here's your safety detent spring and your safety detent that comes in the Radian kit. I'm just going to flip it over so it makes it easier to get on. I'm going to put my detent in right there. And then I've got a grip set up to the side. Put the spring into the grip right here. And then I just like to put tension on it from the side to hold it in place while I turn it upside down. Line it up so that the detent spring, so right here is the detent spring, and it goes into a machined hole into the grip, and it pushes down on the detent and the receiver. So you're just going to line up that hole with the tip of the spring so it falls down on top of the detent like that. And now you can see it's inserted into the machined hole, and you just give it a little pressure to hold it in place while you get your screw set up. At this point I hold the grip up against the receiver and the spring tension just so that it doesn't cross thread. Big old fat bellies holding the front of the receiver. There, so now we are tight, there's no more slack in there. Now let's test. Okay, safety's on, trigger does not fire. I'm just going to put my finger here in case it does slip. Safety off, and it fires. There we go. That's your install of a Radian Talon ambidextrous safety. first thing I like to do is get the bolt catch in and out of the way. You're going to need your roll pin starter. Insert your roll pin into the top so that you can get it started. Lay the flat part against the receiver. This does have a rubberized coating on it so it doesn't scratch. Your roll pin is here, and you're just going to tap this guy in, and there it goes. It already started. So now you take this one off and you use your punch, roll pin punch, which has a little dimple here that fits inside the back of the roll pin. And now that it's started, it doesn't need to trap it because it's already set in place by the metal. Just give it a couple of taps, start driving it through. So once you get it started and pushed all the way flush, take your spring and detent for the bolt catch, or not detent, but plunger. Put it in there and drop it into the machined hole right there. I'm going to point to it. There's a hole right there on the receiver. The spring goes in and then your plunger sits there. Your bolt catch has a hole in the side. That roll pin is going to go through there. So just push the plunger down. Line up your hole right there. Put your roll pin punch on, and this is where you need 3 hands. So what I do is I use my palm to hold this guy down, and then my fingers to hold the roll pin punch in place. And if it doesn't start to go instantly, I just have to adjust it, which it did. It did go. Cool. So now we just got to hold it in place. Make sure it's going. Yep, we're good. So now you don't have to hold the bolt catch in place. You can just hold the roll pin punch. And we're almost all the way through. And there we go. We're good. So now bolt catch works. So we're going to jump into the takedown pin and pivot pin. There is springs and detents in both of these. There is a tool that makes the front quite a bit easier. Looks like this. So we'll jump right into it. So if you look through there, you can see my finger moving behind there. So those holes line up. So then what you're going to do is you're going to rotate it, the whole thing down, and insert your spring through the hole. And it drops in, and then you take your detent and you drop it in. Now we just take our skinny little punch, have your pivot pin ready, push this down, and then just simply rotate the whole thing up. And what that does is it traps that detent in, but leaving you room to push your pivot pin on. So make sure that your channel is facing towards the detent when you start to push it in, or you'll get a surprise. And now you just push it in like so. And now you can pull this out of the way. Just rotate this, make sure it's in the groove. There it goes. This can come out of the way, and now your pivot pin is installed and your detent is compressed. There we go, works like a charm. So now we'll jump to the back. Same thing, except because I'm using a threaded hole in the back, let's see if that's going to zoom in on that. With a 440 set screw, I'm going to take that much of these coils out so that I don't increase the spring tension. Now this one you do a little backwards. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your takedown pin and you're just going to insert it, since you're coming through the back, right here in this hole. Right that's what there. She said.
That's what she said.
Really? It's good. Well played. So you drop your detent in, take your spring that you just trimmed. I like to put the back side of the spring that I cut back. Now you take your Allen wrench with your set screw on it and you just push the spring down and start turning. So hold it in place, start turning, and just make it flush like that. There we go. Check. Yep, just enough tension to hold it, but not too much. That covers the detent, or I'm sorry, the takedown and pivot pins. We are going to be installing a mag release on an AR-15 loader. A mag release, super easy to install. First thing you do, take this and put it through the hole like so. Hold it with your thumb, flip it over, take your spring, put it over the post, take your button, push down the spring until it catches, and get 1 turn to 2 turns on it just to hold it in place. And now you just simply spin this. You'll notice once you get it start to get tight, it's going to hit things, so you have to push in on the button and then pull around so that you don't scratch your bolt catch. I'm just going to use the punch to push the magazine release button in so that I can spin this around the rest of the way, and that now it's tight. Just needed 1 more turn. Grab a mag and test it. Works. This is the last part of the how to assemble a lower receiver. This is going to be your buffer tube, end plate, castle nut, buffer spring retainer, and spring. First thing you want to do is take your buffer tube and put your castle nut on and thread it all the way down. Now that we've got that pushed down, just a clarification, make sure that you have it facing the right way and not backwards, because that will make for a bad day. So you get that threaded down there, take your end plate, and you'll notice that there is a dimpled side and a flat side. Sometimes the flat side has a QD, which this does, and this sits into the machined hole here on the back. Machined lip right there fits into that hole when it's together and keeps it from rotating. Once you get to that point, simply thread this in and pay attention to where the ears on the bottom line up with the machined hole for your retainer. Right now it's still open, so we need to go in more. And now it's halfway covered, so I'm going to back it out. I'm going to put my spring in and my retainer, and now I'm just going to hold it down until that comes around. And now the ear actually holds it down, and you just got to grab a punch. And now all you're going to do is you're just going to hold this down with a little bit of down force. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate it 1 more time around. Right here is the retainer, and the spring is underneath it. My buffer tube is sitting just to the side. Now I've got to push that down and rotate that into place so that this keyhole lines up with that. There we go, locked into place. It is trapped inside of those 2 ears on the buffer tube. Now it is trapped inside there, and it's ready to tighten down the castle nut and insert our buffer and buffer spring. Now take your armorer's wrench. So line them up like so, and just hold everything tight so it doesn't slip and scratch everything, and just get it snug. And once you get it snug, and just give it a little tiny turn, and that should be all you need. You do not have to over torque it, and that is everything except for your stock, but that literally just slides on and locks into place. So what you're going to do is you're going to pull down on the handle here, and then you're going to see that there's a pin right here. So you're going to pull down, and then you're going to pull that pin down with your thumbs and insert it with that pulled down onto the stock, and then let go. It will lock into place. And now you have a fully assembled lower receiver ready for any upper. And take it out and have some fun, or go to work, whatever you got to do. And that's it. MS Videos. I'm Jeremy. Tim's behind me. We got Justin visiting. And until next time, we out.